Hello again, I am Blunty, and this is one of the cheapest wireless mechanical keyboards on Amazon. At just $29.99, I snatched it up with low hopes for build quality, typing feel, and durability. It is so bitch basic that even Amazon themselves list the brand as generic. And it also appears to be very, very new on the market, as it has exactly 0 Amazon reviews at the time I purchased it. So I am 100% guinea pigging here, pulling the trigger on an unknown quantity, just hoping for the best. But it should be fine for what I actually need it for, and why I got it in the first place. I had 4 needs on my checklist. I wanted it to be small and light. I wanted mechanical keys. I wanted backlit keys. And I wanted a wireless mode that operated with a paired USB dongle and not just Bluetooth. And this is all because the use case I needed it for isn't one where I'll be using the keyboard a whole lot, so it needs to be easy and tidy to put away and off my desk, but also have it ready at hand. So portability wasn't so much the issue as just not taking up a lot of space when I'm not using it. And when I do use it, I want the pleasant feel of a mechanical keyboard. I needed it to be backlit because it's more than likely that when it's in use, I'm working in a dimly lit environment. I need it to have a paired dongle because it makes connectivity a whole lot easier with the equipment I'll be using it with and moving it in between. So let's run over the basics. It's a 60% keyboard, which means it's built to be compact in both available keys and footprint. If you're unfamiliar with the term, a 60% keyboard lacks a number pad, which is fine by me. I've been using 10 keyless boards for a decade already, which are also known as 80% keyboards for reference here. And I just never need a keypad, and I'd rather have the extra desk space back from it. But a 60% goes further. There's no discrete F key row. You can still use F keys, but they're accessed via a modifier key combination. There's no discrete arrow keys or navigation cluster, which would be things like page up, page down, home, insert, and the like. But again, that functionality is here, but you have to access it through a modifier and combination. Now, normally, I'm unwilling to give up on these particular keys as discrete entities, but again, this is a very specific use case, and I will hardly ever, probably never, actually need those keys. It has multiple wireless modes, starting with the paired dongle that I needed from it, but also 2 discrete Bluetooth modes, all accessed via a toggle switch on the side, which means you can switch it between 3 wirelessly connected devices at will without having to repair or resync it, which could be quite handy. And of course, with the USB dongle, I can just move that dongle between machines at will and have it instantly connect, easy peasy. It will also work in a wired mode through the USB connector, of course, which is also, naturally, the charge port for the built-in 1600 mAh battery, which promises 360 hours of standby or 10 hours of continuous use. That is continuous use if you have the RGB off, of course. You get less time with it when the lights are on, naturally, and how much extra time you get will depend on how bright they are and whether or not they're animating or flashing and whatnot, so harder to put a number to that. It will also automatically pop into a sleep mode after 10 minutes of inactivity, turning off the lights and connectivity to keep the batteries happy. Wake up is near instant though, so that's actually fine. As soon as you touch a key, you're back in action. You don't have to wait for it to resync or anything like that. It just comes to life instantly. The key switches are unlisted as to what they specifically are or where they come from, but I recognize them as Altemu Blues, or at the very least a knockoff version. I don't actually have any Altemu Blues at hand for a side-by-side comparison, but subjectively these do feel pretty decent actually, better than I'd expected at this price point to be fair. They're linear, they're clicky, and they've got a satisfying tactical experience. Response is fast and reliable, it feels pretty consistent across the whole board, and the deck is pretty solid and rigid. But of course at this size and scale you'd not really expect flex to be much of an issue anyway. The default keycaps it comes with are perfectly fine. The font is inoffensive and clean enough, but after swapping out the keycaps on my main daily driver keyboard that I use all day every day with pudding style keycaps, I've really grown quite attached to that aesthetic, so I'd figured I'd do the same here. So I also purchased the cheapest possible set of pudding style keycaps on Amazon. YXK branded a full set of 104 for $18, which funnily enough is 60% of the cost of the 60% keyboard. I also expected these to be kind of cheap and nasty, but they're actually fine. The font could stand to be a little bit bolder in my opinion and my preference, and the red and black mixed set I went for, while I really like the look, the backlight contrast through the red ones on those is, well, it's not super readable. Didn't really think about that too hard, but it's also okay because they're secondary keys and you really don't need them to be that clearly backlit anyway. Also had to keep a few of the original keys on the board because they had legends on them for a few shortcuts and function modified keys that I really will want to have indicated just in case I do actually need to use them someday, like the F keys and the navigation cluster. The modifier for the arrow keys is the WASD keys, which is what you use for movement in video games, so that one's pretty easy to remember without the legends on it. It's also worth pointing out at this stage the flickering you might be seeing on the backlighting, that's only in camera. To the eye, to the human eye, it seems cleanly lit, consistent and steady. It is of course the case with a lot of RGB implementations. The way brightness is often controlled on these makes them seem to flicker or pulse on cameras unless you get real lucky and happen to have your camera's sensor readout and shutter speed just happen to be perfectly synced. So don't let it bother you, that's not what it looks like IRL. But the backlighting itself does seem a little uneven, being quite top-weighted on the key. In contrast to my glorious GMMK keyboard, they seem both dim, off-color, and uneven. But, I was expecting that. It's not uncommon for cheap RGB key switches to look this way. It's frankly enough for me that they light up because it just makes it more visible and easy to see in a dark room, because the use case for this is to use on my consoles while gaming, which I, of course, very often do in a darkened room. And that is also why I needed it, to work with a paired USB dongle. So it works instantly and without any fiddling or setup or syncing, because all the consoles instantly and seamlessly recognize a USB keyboard, including wireless ones that come with their own pre-synced USB dongle. This is also why I wasn't too fussy about the overall quality, because I won't actually be using it much, and when I do use it, it's usually for brief periods anyway. But when I do use it for in-game chat or other text input, like, say, popping a screenie up on social media and typing out the post, I do want a better experience that I have been having for the last few years. Because I really don't like using on-screen keyboards, so slow and clumsy and awkward, yuck. And the keyboard I have been using to date with my consoles is a really, really nasty feeling piece of crap that I've had for years. I originally got it super cheaply for use with a tablet, so it needed to be super slim and portable, which heavily compromised the typing experience. It's been in service for many years, but I have finally just got totally sick of it. So I decided to try a cheap mechanical one, and here we are with this here today, with me telling you about it. Now, at this point, I've been going on about it a bit, and if I don't shut the frick up and just let you hear it and hear what the keys sound like and what the key switches sound like, all of the anally retentive keyboard nerds are going to shit their very own pants in my comment section about it. So here, the next bit is all typed out without the mildly pleasant tone of my voice and friendly Aussie accent. So, a small, tidy, wireless, mechanical RGB backlit keyboard with its own dongle for less than $30 on Amazon for relatively infrequent use while gaming. I had anticipated telling you guys that, well, it's a bit flimsy and a bit of a junker and a bit janky, but it'll get the basic job done. But I'm actually more impressed with it than I expected it to be. It does feel genuinely nice. It sounds pleasant enough, it's consistent, and it does seem quite reliable. Nothing about it screams a super cheaply made flimsy piece of crap. But of course, I've only been using it for a fistful of days at the time of publication, so I can't really speak to the longevity or long-term reliability expectations, but there is no obvious warning signs that I should be too worried about it on that score. And those cheapo pudding caps, also quite nice. I am, in fact, mildly surprisingly, happy to recommend both for those of you looking for a budget option. And it is certainly much better experience than that terrible little hateful thing I had been using to date. Seriously, I really hated using that thing, but it was still better than the on-screen keyboard, so, you know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been useful and or insightful to you. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons who have been scrolling up above there in that little window, whose above and beyond support I really do appreciate. I am Blunty. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.